breakfast, lunch, and dinner. 3 meals a day. It feels like a basic fact of being human, but it's actually a pretty recent invention. For most of history, nobody ate like this. The idea that you sit down 3 times a day at fixed times didn't exist for the vast majority of human history. So how did we get here? Who decided that breakfast, lunch, and dinner were the rules? The answer involves ancient Rome, medieval monks, the Industrial Revolution, and a cereal company that wanted to sell more cornflakes. Let's start at the very beginning. For most of human existence, people were hunter-gatherers. And hunter-gatherers didn't eat on a schedule. They ate when they found food. Some days that meant a massive feast. A successful hunt could mean eating until they couldn't move. Other days meant nothing at all. This feast or famine pattern wasn't a problem. The human body is actually built for it. We can store energy, burn fat, and go surprisingly long without eating. There was no breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There was just food when you could get it. Then came farming. About 10,000 years ago, humans started growing crops and raising animals. This changed everything about how people ate. Farming created surplus. You could store grain for months. You always had something to eat. And that stability allowed something new to emerge, the idea of eating at regular times. The ancient Egyptians ate twice a day, morning and evening. Simple, practical, tied to the rhythms of agricultural work. The ancient Greeks also ate twice, sometimes 3 times, but informally. A small bite in the morning, a light midday snack, and a real meal in the evening. It was casual, not structured. Then came the Romans, and the Romans had opinions about everything, including when to eat. Roman society developed one of the most rigid meal systems in the ancient world. And most of it looks nothing like what we do today. The Romans had 3 named meals. The ientaculum, taken at dawn, was barely a meal at all. A few pieces of bread, maybe dipped in olive oil or wine. A handful of olives. Some cheese. The prandium was a quick midday bite, usually eaten standing. Leftovers from the night before, some bread and vegetables, maybe some cold meat. And then the cena. The cena was the main event. Eaten in the late afternoon, sometimes stretching into the evening, it was the only meal Romans actually cared about. Wealthy Romans ate the cena reclining on cushioned couches, surrounded by friends and family, working through multiple courses over hours. But here's the surprising part. Many Romans, especially the educated elite, looked down on eating breakfast at all. Eating early in the morning was seen as a sign of weakness. It meant you couldn't control your appetite. A Roman philosopher named Cicero actually criticized someone in court for having eaten breakfast. It was considered evidence of low character. This attitude toward breakfast wasn't unique to Rome. It lasted well into the Middle Ages. In medieval Europe, the main meal was called dinner, and it happened at midday. Not what we call dinner today. Actual midday dining. Peasants, monks, and lords alike organized their day around the midday meal. The morning was for work. You ate when the sun was at its peak. Then you worked again until evening, when you had a lighter supper. Breakfast was for children, the sick, and manual laborers who couldn't survive until midday without fuel. For a grown adult to eat breakfast was seen as indulgent, almost shameful. The Catholic Church actually reinforced this. Before you could eat in the morning, you were supposed to attend Mass. And Mass could last hours. So breakfast was structurally ruled out for the devout. Monks had the most regulated eating schedule of anyone in medieval society. The rule of Saint Benedict set specific hours for meals. 2 meals in summer, 1 in winter. Always after prayer. Never before. This religious structure influenced everyone. The idea that you eat according to a schedule set by something outside yourself, whether God or the monastery bell, planted a seed. Then came the next transformation, and it had nothing to do with religion. In the 1700s, something started shifting in England. New kinds of workers appeared. Merchants, bankers, lawyers, tradesmen. People who worked indoors, in offices and shops, on schedules set by commerce rather than sunlight. These workers started eating earlier in the day, before heading to work. A modest morning meal became practical. Not a feast, just enough to get going. And the idea of a midday break became common. You couldn't eat at your desk, so you stepped out. A quick midday meal became a habit. The shape of 3 meals was forming, but it wasn't locked in yet. Then came the Industrial Revolution, and everything snapped into place. Starting in the late 1700s and accelerating through the 1800s, factories changed the nature of work completely. Before factories, most people worked at their own pace. A farmer could eat when he was hungry. A craftsman could break when he wanted. Time was flexible. The factory killed flexible time. When you work a 12-hour shift with hundreds of other people, the machine doesn't stop because you're hungry. Everyone breaks at the same time, or nobody does. Factory owners scheduled 2 breaks into the workday, a short morning break and a longer midday stop. Workers ate before the shift started, at the midday break, and after work ended. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. 3 meals, fixed in time, dictated by the factory whistle. This wasn't a natural evolution. It was an industrial mandate. Millions of people restructured their entire relationship with food to fit the demands of a machine. By the mid-1800s, 3 fixed daily meals had become the standard across the industrializing world. And once it became standard, it became invisible. It felt like the way things had always been. But one piece was still missing. In the late 1800s, breakfast was still the weakest meal. A working-class habit, nothing special, certainly not the most important meal of the day. Then came John Harvey Kellogg. Kellogg was a doctor running a sanitarium in Battle Creek, Michigan. He believed that bland, simple food was the key to health and moral purity. He invented corn flakes as a health food for his patients. His brother, Keith Kellogg, saw something else. He saw a business. Added sugar to the corn flakes, went around his brother, and started the Kellogg Company. Then he did something that changed American eating habits forever. He advertised. He told people that breakfast was the most important meal of the day. That corn flakes were the scientific choice. That eating a proper breakfast made you healthier, stronger, sharper. None of this was based on real science. It was marketing copy. But it worked. A competitor named C.W. Post did the same thing with grape nuts. Then came more cereals, each claiming to be essential to morning health. By the early 1900s, the idea that you must eat breakfast, and specifically a processed, packaged breakfast, was embedded in American culture. The message spread through radio, then television. By the 1950s and 60s, cereal commercials were aimed directly at children. The most important meal of the day was now non-negotiable. So here we are. 3 meals a day, every day, feels completely natural. But it's a recent construction, assembled from pieces across centuries. Hunter-gatherers gave us nothing. They just ate. Farmers gave us routine. Eat with the rhythms of the land. Romans gave us the idea that some meals matter more than others. And they would have been horrified by breakfast. Medieval monks gave us the concept of eating on a schedule set by external authority. The Industrial Revolution gave us the 3-meal structure itself. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, timed by the factory clock. And cereal companies gave breakfast its cultural importance. The most important meal of the day was invented by people trying to sell you cereal. Today, intermittent fasting researchers are discovering what hunter-gatherers knew intuitively. The human body doesn't need to eat 3 times a day. It can run on 1 meal, or 2, or a different pattern entirely. In Japan, many people traditionally ate 2 full meals and a light snack. In Spain, the main meal is still eaten at 2 p.m., closer to the Roman cena than to anything we'd call dinner. 3 meals a day isn't biology. It's history. It's a habit we inherited from factories, monks, and marketing departments. And once you see that, you're allowed to wonder, how many other things that feel completely natural are just accidents of history that nobody ever thought to question?